The XL
Okay,
will just boot loop.
we are recording and
You're
we're
assuming it
good
will
to
boot.
go. All right. I'm going to get started here then. We have a lot to talk about. Welcome to the Android Police Podcast. I'm your host, David Ruddick.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
I'm Cody Toombs.
I'm Jordan Palmer.
And I'm Corbin Davenport.
And we winged it on the introduction order.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Good job, guys. Got a great
Yay.
feeling about this show already.
Off to a really good start.
Yeah. So this week, obviously, the big news that just came out today, really, is that Google has sent out invitations for their what is probably the next Pixel. Of course, it is the next Pixel on October 4th, which is just a few short weeks away. So we knew previously that, we assumed previously that Evan Blast was right about the date. He said October 5th, so he's close. We'll give him credit. So we expected this was coming. And as far as what we expect at the event, just to give kind of a recap, I personally expect there are going to be, well, technically 5 products. Actually, technically 4. So we'll have the Pixel 2, the Pixel 2 XL, which I'll just say now, those are the names, by the way. They're not going to do anything weird. They're just going to keep the same names. Then there's going to be the Google Home Mini. And then I've heard that they're going to rename the regular Google Home to Google Home Max. I'm not sure if I believe this.
I
think
am not a fan of that.
terrible.
Maybe it's something that's for certain markets, because I feel like in the US that sounds dumb.
That sounds really dumb here.
Yeah, pretty dumb. And so it's not going to be any different from the regular Google Home right now. It'll be the same deal. They just want to like separate out what their like kind of purposes are. The 5th thing is obviously the new Chromebook Pixel, which if you've read up on Chrome Unbox, various leaks about Eve over the last few months, you know a lot about that already. They've done a great job kind of, digging through Chromium's code to really check that out and see what's going on. It's going to have like a dedicated assisted button. It's going to have a fingerprint scanner, apparently, which is super cool. So I personally am probably most looking forward to the laptop in that case. Yeah.
But it's still going to be a Chromebook, and it's still probably going to cost way too much for a Chromebook.
I wonder.
Chromebook
I know.
Pixel,
So we know that last year when Google wanted to do Project Bison with Andromeda, and that was supposed to be the laptop they were going to release this year, or at least one of maybe they were going to do a Chromebook Pixel too. But anyway, they wanted to price that at $800, which I think is not too crazy for a Chromebook. Like it's at the very edge, but I think that's acceptable.
If it has some sort of convertible sort of capability, or like a 2-in-1 thing, I could see maybe paying.
I think convertible is pretty likely.
If it's just a laptop form factor, I think that's just too much.
I think it's got to be a convertible. There's almost no doubt in my mind, especially at the Play Store.
Yeah,
It definitely seems like since the Chromebook Pixel 2 kind of faded out, and we've seen the Samsung Chromebook Plus and Pro and the Asus Flip 302, that the kind of like most a Chromebook is about $500 now. So I wonder if they'll price it like a Chromebook Pixel again, or if it'll be competitive with other Chromebooks.
I think the one thing to take away from the Samsung Chromebooks, though, which Google was heavily involved in the promotion of, they actually distributed the review units and everything. Like they sent outlets Chromebook Pros before they were available. They gave them to them in the regular Plus body, and then they put the Pro Intel motherboard in there so that people could see that Android apps work on x86. But then they were like really buggy and did not work well. So Google was very eager to get those out there. I think maybe one thing to possibly point to is that those Chromebooks have styluses, which I think, I know that Bison was going to have a big focus on stylus. They're going to make one with Wacom and active stylus. And I have to wonder if Eve is getting any of that. I haven't really read about that specifically, but.
And what would be the purpose of that if there was a 2-in-1 or something like that?
Well, I mean, I think that they want to say that, hey, you can develop, like laptop grade software for a Chromebook via Android apps, because the stylus input is supported in Android and everything. So I think that that's a possibility. I kind of wonder what I wonder what chipset they're going to use, especially if they're going to go with like the brand new Intel stuff, or if they're going to go to the prior generation.
I will say that my Chromebook Flip 302 runs Android apps. I really haven't had any issues, and it has a Core M3.
Oh, it does have an Intel chip in it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the old Flip had a Rock chip in it.
Yeah, I think the lower end ones still do that they
Okay.
make. It's just like this super high end one that I have that's like $500.
Okay. Well, then that's good to know. I remember when I had my Chromebook Flip, the original one, that the Android apps on the Rock chip worked pretty well, actually. It was a slow Chromebook, though. Like,
Yeah.
But it was the Android apps were surprisingly stable. But that was an ARM chip, so you know.
I think the only problem is that you still have some apps that aren't compiling for x86. Like a lot of games usually just stick to ARM.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of stuff I tried worked fine.
Yeah,
Well, it didn't really help when Intel kind of backed out of doing chips for phones.
Yeah, exactly. That was, I think that Intel did finally realize that, we're going to bridge the gap here in terms of, our ULP stuff in terms of power consumption. That like, why are we making phone chips? The M3s now are so minuscule in their, power consumption. Granted, they're kind of slow as dirt, but they've come a long way. So
yeah, the last Chromebook I used was the original Samsung Chromebook back in like 2014.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
That was such a piece of crap. Like,
was that the one that had the felt on it? Or
no, it was the plastic that they made to look like aluminum.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it was some kind of weird material.
Yeah, it was so bad, especially if you tried to dual boot Ubuntu with it.
Wasn't there a phone or rather a Chromebook they made that had like the fake leather thing like they did on the
the Chromebook 2, the Samsung Chromebook 2.
Yeah.
I remember that one. Yeah.
That was ugly.
Ugly indeed. Yeah.
So are we not expecting the headphones at the event?
Oh,
too?
the headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, those will be there, I'm sure.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're going to like sheepishly tell us that there's no headphone jack on the Pixels after they.
Oh God, yeah, I'm sure that this is. Yeah, this has got to be a huge point of agony inside Google right now.
Yeah, they better get
But
Bluetooth
then why
right this
do
time.
it? Then why do it?
I
Yeah.
feel like they made the decision, like just being like, "Oh, well, everybody's going to do it." So I mean, it's
So,
not
like,
a big deal.
if there's not
then
gonna
it's
be
like,
a-
yes.
It's like everybody's jumping off a bridge. I guess we will too.
Yeah, if there's
Yeah.
not going to be a headphone jack, they got to get Bluetooth right and waterproofing.
So my guess is that as a way to make up for this faux pas, if you pre-order one, I bet you either get the headphones for free or get some kind of discount on them. I would not be surprised.
Better.
I have trouble believing they're going to be free. The regular version of those headphones is what, $400?
Oh no, not the Quiet Comforts. That's not Beasto.
Oh, you're talking about just some off.
I'm pretty sure
Okay.
Google's going to announce some wireless earbuds.
Yeah, Google will have their own things. Then I think they'll have like third parties that can sort of do the same deal with Assistant, but they're
Yeah.
not.
I mean, it could be
So-
wrong. I mean, I could totally be misreading it, but I thought that I was kind of under the impression that we would have some official Google wireless earbuds.
That's what I have believed as well. I mean, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to have to be completely wireless because the
Or-
AirPods are a thing, and despite how many arguments there are against this, like that's just what you need to do now.
I'm wondering if do you think they'll include USB-C, just regular earbuds in the box?
Doubt it. Don't think so.
Probably an
I think they'll
adapter.
include an adapter. Yeah.
Get the dongle.
I think I got one from Blue of all companies that sent me USB-C wired earbuds.
And
I
that's
haven't
weird.
gotten any others.
The only ones I've used are HTCs that they include with the U11, and they're pretty good for like included earbuds. But HTC is also a sinking ship, and they're doing anything they can to like make their product more appealing. But
Speaking of HTC syncing,
yes,
there was a report recently that Google might just straight up buy HTC because
Yes,
it's
Google
really
is-
that bad.
going boat shopping.
I mean, I'm down with that. That'd be cool.
I mean, you know what I feel like might be happening is so Google is going to have HTC build the smaller Pixel this year, And they were like, all right, so we got that lined up. And then HTC is like, oh, by the way, we might actually go out of business soon. And it's like, well, I guess that we'll just have to do something about that.
Well, because HTC, I read something that they're looking at selling off the Vive unit too.
Oh yeah.
they're
Well, they're gonna. I mean, they would spin that off into its own company. That can survive on its own. People actually buy those.
Yeah.
Do they?
I mean, they buy enough. They buy enough
some,
of them that investors are still willing to throw money at. Vive.
Exactly.
Well, and there's the Vive now mobile VR stuff too. That's coming.
Yeah. So I think the whole HTC rumor is we'll see.
I mean, I feel like it is probably more likely that Google will just become like a partner. Like they'll invest a lot of money in HTC.
Maybe.
Well,
I could see that, sure.
I could
Because, I
also
mean, look-
kind of see them doing the Apple routine where, kind of along what you're saying, it's we'll just fund you to keep operating and you will do what we say, but we're not actually going to tie ourselves to your ship because that would be bad.
I mean,
Like
I feel
Alphabet's
like
not going to go to HTC.
I guess, you know, it might depend on if HTC has patents that Google would like to have, then maybe they would consider that an okay transaction because they kept
I'm
all of
sure.
Motorola's patents when they sold that off.
Yeah.
But I mean, HTC is in trouble. Like they apparently just this last month, their August revenues are 50% lower than last year, and last year was not great.
No.
Yikes.
I thought there was an increase in Q1 or Q2 for the U11
I think it was
stuff.
Q2. Yeah, it was when the U11 came out, and like everybody who bought a U11 bought it right away, and now nobody buys them.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
All the HTC fanboys bought it up already.
Yeah.
But you got to figure that this also could be one of those things. Google may have wanted to pick up HTC for a while, and if they had thought about doing it a few years ago, it would have cost a fortune. Over the years, you could just watch as HTC's value, like slowly, well, not slowly, it crept down pretty fast, actually. It tumbled, like falling downstairs.
Cratered, we call that. Cratered.
Yeah. And come on, you know, at this point, you're buying it. Google can buy HTC by like extending a warm meal in a bed. This is like basically saving it.
You know, I don't think financially it's hugely problematic for them to buy HTC. I think then you have to look at revenue, and then it's problematic because they're immediately going to get into the Motorola situation again. Where they're going to go reorganize everything, and of course that's going to result in huge quarterly losses because the company's not going to be producing as much stuff, and they're probably going to start cutting relationships and distribution, and that's kind of what makes me like think that this may not be what it seems necessarily. And I think if Google does buy HTC, you know, people have said like, oh, well, it's not like they're going to, you know, get rid of like all of the distribution and engineers and like facilities overnight. And I kind of think they might.
They could should. I mean, look, what if Google just bought HTC and instead of doing what they did with Motorola, they're like, actually, we're just going to chop it up into pieces and use what we want and throw the rest away.
Yeah, that's I think.
But wait, that's exactly what they did with Motorola, though, right?
Oh, not technically. I mean, look, they definitely tried with Motorola. They were like, we're going to fix your products and then we'll sell it off to somebody else in one piece, except for the patents. They kept the patents.
Yeah. And the Google X lab, is that what it was called back then? That was working on like Project Ara.
They kept the that part of Motorola too.
Yes.
But I mean, but Google could buy HTC and HTC could cease to be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with it. I think the way they could play it is, you know, well, Google isn't buying HTC, Alphabet's buying HTC, and it's going to be an Alphabet company, and maybe they keep the branding and then just literally never talk about HTC ever again.
They sell like all of the physical assets of the company are sold off to.
I'm wondering if buying HTC would have anything to do with those little rumors swirling for the past few years of Google doing its own SoC.
Well, no, probably not. That would have to do with
very little to do with that.
Yeah,
HTC doesn't really have any expertise in that.
No, that has to do with like working with foundries like TSMC and Samsung, which Google would have to go through to build its own chipset. I mean, Apple does too. So everybody has to do that. It's a highly specialized manufacturing process. I think Google has a lot of expertise on their own about producing processors. I think that probably they're still a very long way off from being able to make a meaningfully. I feel like Google wouldn't do their own chipset unless they felt they were meaningfully improving upon what's
they're
already
not.
available in the market.
They're not just going to do the Qualcomm thing where they license the instruction set from ARM and like just
Yeah, that
make
would
some changes.
be so silly because
Yeah,
I
that
mean
would be
they
a
have-
waste of resources.
for all the crap Qualcomm gets about like how Apple is so far ahead of them in terms of CPU design and performance, and like the fact that you can't have a fully integrated vertical product because you rely on Qualcomm to be his partner in the chain. Qualcomm does make the best mobile radios, and they generally do a lot of kind of innovation around like the chipset in general, like developing new features and working with their partners to make sure everything kind of works together. So
Yeah, and
Google
on a
is being
and on a
chip
similar
better.
note, did you guys see the version, or rather, that Microsoft is working with Qualcomm to get Windows 10 running on the 835?
Yeah, they announced that when the 835 was announced, I think. Like,
Oh
so I
yeah,
guess they're still working on it.
I think I
That
saw.
sounds like a bad idea.
Well, I was reading about it, and obviously, the first thing you think of when you think of that is Windows RT. But the difference here is that supposedly Microsoft has achieved 32-bit x86 emulation on this, which
Interesting. So
should
that's
cover.
a good point.
Yeah, so that should cover a large amount of PC software. Obviously, not everything, but I mean, that's already far better than Windows RT. And Microsoft said like they're not even calling this a separate version of Windows or branding it or making it different. This is just Windows 10 Home and Basic, or not Basic, Pro. Yeah, they don't have Basic anymore.
Well, I mean, I guess Qualcomm though has been so thirsty to get into laptops for years and years, but they've never had the clout to go up against Intel because of that 32-bit x86 issue. I feel like I don't know. Qualcomm wants real bad for that to be a thing, and I have to wonder if they have just a chance in hell of competing with Intel at that level in terms of parts, because Intel can cut the price on a part and just squash any hope Qualcomm has of doing laptops.
Yeah, like they started doing when.
that.
I mean, and do you really want to like get into laptops that bad right now? I mean, I feel like phones are probably better long term.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
And there's also a perception issue. You're never going to convince people that Intel and to a lesser degree AMD aren't just already dominating that world too heavily. And they just seem like there's so much better products.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's stuff that Intel does very, very badly, like Bluetooth, like certain, like a lot of wireless connectivity stuff, which is where Qualcomm excels comparatively. I think there's a lot they could bring, but at the same time, I feel like from a kind of like hardware partner standpoint and everything, and like performance, I would be a lot more sheepish about like going to a Qualcomm processor on a laptop. I just would not. Intel has the performance thing pretty down. So
I think it'd be interesting though, and I think I saw the post I was reading about it. It said companies like Dell and HP were partnering with them on the first ones. So I don't know. I'd like to try it out. I don't think I'd necessarily buy one.
Yeah.
At least not yet.
So Max in the chat brings up a point about Exynos. So I would not say that Exynos is ahead of Qualcomm. The only way they're ahead is just raw processing performance, and even that's pretty marginal. Their GPUs are worse. Their radios are substantially worse. I think that we've seen testing of the Shannon modems against Qualcomm's Snapdragon modems, and it's not even close. I don't know if the Shannon modems are as bad as Intel's, but they're probably down there. And the other players also we don't really hear about in the U.S. because they don't really have the big, they don't have the relationships with carriers here is Huawei and their Kirin chips, which use reference designs for CPU and GPU, but they do have their own radios and probably a lot of like proprietary power controller stuff because Huawei phones get crazy battery life. So I'd be curious to see.
There was another Chinese company that recently started making its own chips.
Xiaomi.
Xiaomi, that's right.
Yeah, but they made
Surge X1.
Yeah, they're super bogus low end, like
Yeah,
whatever.
they're just.
And then there's MediaTek.
And then there's MediaTek. Yeah, MediaTek. We exist. You know, somebody's got to scrape the bottom of the barrel.
Somebody's got to keep putting cores.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Seriously, so many cores, and what I don't understand, like it doesn't seem to benefit anything in any way.
It doesn't. I've used their deca-core SoCs, and it's like, where is this going?
Yeah.
Why is this
I want a phone with 32 cores. Make it happen.
So we should also talk about. We'll get to Apple in a minute here, but probably we should get to the Essential phone first. I feel like otherwise we'll forget to. Ryan has been using it and has a review up on the site, and it sounds like it's just kind of
Yeah, I mean,
Does it seriously have another SoC for the camera?
What?
Does it seriously have an SoC and a fan for the camera?
Yeah. The 360 camera is a crazy thing. I mean, I have it right here. It's actually kind of a nice looking little device.
It is.
But as soon as you connect it to the phone, hold on, I'm gonna plug it in and just see. I don't know if you'll be able to hear.
I remember when I saw this.
That looks like shit. Oh my god.
So I guess has anybody like extracted an explanation from them for this, or
I asked them briefly, and like they just sort of said like, look, it's doing a lot of stuff. Like it has it has what is essentially a Snapdragon 625 inside to do the processing, and I'm like, well, but phones that have those don't need fans, but I don't know. I guess the kind of the operating theory then is like the way I looked at it, because when I first saw that I was like, why is it on actively instead of just coming on like when it gets hot? And I think the reason is the fan is on all the time, because when you go to do the thing that's going to make it hottest, which is record video, it's make sure the chip's at the coolest temperature possible when you start recording, because it cuts the fan as soon as you start recording video. It does. It does get like really warm. Like you can tell like after I recorded a 38 or 39 second whatever 4K video for the review, and it looks okay. I mean, it looks better than the still photos actually. But man, at the end of that video, I was like, this is pretty toasty. I don't know that I want to record something much longer. And that file was almost 400 megabytes. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny to me because, you know, like you've got other I guess the processing thing is what makes the difference, because like if you use like a Samsung Gear 360, I guess it doesn't process the footage, it just captures.
Yeah. So, but the 360 camera, I think it's $200. That's like the retail price, which is okay, I guess. I don't think anybody should buy that. I think that the Essential Phone's approach to modularity is kind of cool if they could come up with modular accessories that people actually care about, because unlike the Motorola phones, they don't give over the whole back to that. They just have the two little power pins, and then it actually communicates wirelessly over a 60 gigahertz connection with the phone. So like it's clever. I don't know that it's something that, you know, is really going to matter. The phone itself, look, the camera that built into the phone is bad. They have got some problems. An update rolled out. Like I just got it on phone a little bit ago. So I'll check and see if it, you know, changes anything. But I've never had a phone that with a bad camera, and then it was updated to be not bad. That's never happened.
Well, I've heard the new update does reduce the crashiness and general awfulness of the camera
that's great, because that camera app was so bad, and it doesn't do anything. It is the most bare bones camera app I've seen in years. There's no manual mode. There are no like grid lines. HDR is terrible, useless. There's no auto HDR, and it was so slow. It would lag probably for a second or two between each photo. And it would take ages to process and save the photos. And sometimes it just wouldn't save the photos. They would just disappear after I took them, which was pretty annoying.
So it can't even do camera things right.
Yeah. So like, and I mean, it's you know, it's got a secondary monochrome sensor that is supposed to sharpen the photos, but they don't look very sharpened to me.
So it's not as awesome as the Huawei effect.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess Huawei effect is awesome.
Huawei's cameras are fine. I have no problem with those. I think they do fine. I don't know how much difference the secondary sensor makes, but the Essential Phone, I mean, they have things they need to work on with the camera. I mean, there are a ton of samples in the review, and I have one that I took one shot with the Pixel, and then right after that I took a shot with the Essential phone, and it is shocking how much worse the Essential photo is. Everybody should go and look at that if you're at all curious, even if you don't go through the whole gallery. Just look at that one. And I mean, the software in general it's bone stock Android Nougat. There are no changes whatsoever. There are no custom features, no pre-installed apps other than the Google stuff, which is fine. Like, I have no problem with that, except that it was buggy. It was slow, and it would hang sometimes and just do weird stuff. Again, the new update is supposed to fix that. I don't know if it does yet, but I was not super encouraged by that. I guess everybody is most interested in this phone because of the crazy screen that goes all the way up to the corners and sort of, follows the shape of the phone. But it does have that giant... Yeah, and it does have that, but it has that giant cutout right in the middle at the top, and it's a little distracting. I mean, you get used to it after a while, but for some reason, I guess apparently Essential was asked by Google to not allow most apps to extend all the way to the top of the screen. So most apps that you open, they just stop at the bottom of the cutout, and then you have like this black space with status bar icons above it, which it looks kind of busted.
Is that what that giant status bar screenshot we saw a couple months ago? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, but some apps don't extend the status bar technically. Like, there's no color; it's just black.
Right.
And then Google apps are on a whitelist that lets them extend all the way to the top for some reason. I don't know why. But Essential is being like really, they're playing it really close to the chest with how the top of the screen operates. So I mean, on the home screen it looks really neat. The wallpaper goes like all the way up to the edge of the phone. But it's just kind of a gimmick. It doesn't really help with usability. It doesn't look cool most of the time. It's just sort of a thing. So I don't know. I would prefer something like the Galaxy S8, frankly, that just has very narrow bezels at the top and bottom and no crazy weird screen cutouts.
Yeah, I'm pretty much there with you on that. The other thing I noticed when I used the phone is the software does not seem especially well optimized.
Yes.
It's like it's not slow, but it is not fast.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
it's like it goes through these phases where like it's clipping along and everything's fine, and I think it's like fast enough, and then it stops. Like everything will stop for a few seconds, and then it'll catch up. All the things that you like, if you tapped or swiped on anything while it was frozen, those things will all just happen, and then it goes back to normal.
Oh, that's what happens on the G6.
Yeah, I've heard that about the G6, unfortunately, but I never really used it long term. Yeah, so it just feels like, so my kind of feeling about the Essential phone is Andy Rubin had a very clear ship time frame in his mind, and they understood that the hardware would be ready. Unfortunately, the software does not seem like it was ready.
Yeah, I mean, and like the build quality of this phone is really good. Like, it is a very interesting piece of hardware. I mean, the frame is titanium and the back panel is ceramic. I mean, you don't see that sort of design anywhere else right now. It is a little heavy, but it feels like an expensive thing when you pick it up.
It also doesn't seem like the glass. I mean, I'm sure the titanium helps a little bit in terms of just keeping force away from from the screen, but I know that a couple of them have broken. It seems like the screen does break.
I mean, it's it has a very like a curve at the very edge. It's like 2.5D glass or whatever they want to call it now. So like if it falls on the corner, it is entirely possible you will shatter the screen. Although there's like so there are antenna lines, and then there's like a ring of plastic that goes all the way around, like between the glass and the titanium. I don't know if that's related to the antennas or if that's like a thing to sort of cushion the glass a little bit. I'm not sure, but I mean, because titanium wouldn't flex the same way aluminum would.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I totally get that the hardware is interesting, but I feel like as soon as Apple announced the iPhone X, basically guaranteed that like nobody cares anymore about Essential.
Yeah, I hope that Essential survives another year, because I want to see what they will do next time, to see if they can, maybe this will be like the prototype. This is the thing they tried, and it did some interesting stuff. And maybe the next thing they come up with will actually be a genuinely interesting phone that's worth buying.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they will be around to do another phone. I'm also curious to see what their smart home stuff ends up doing. I feel like that octagon circular screen thing that they're doing, that seems way too high concept.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that just went away. They just stopped talking about that.
Yeah,
it never happened.
So Ryan, how's the Essential phone compared to the OnePlus 5?
I would definitely buy OnePlus 5 because it's way cheaper. The camera is better on the OnePlus 5. The OnePlus 5 is faster. Build quality is, different. They're both good in their own way, I suppose. If I were going to carry one or the other, I'd probably just carry a OnePlus 5. That would be a safer bet, I think.
Yeah. I feel like Andy Rubin had a lot of hubris with this launch, and I feel like that's kind of what makes me not feel that bad for them. Like, he was way, like, he set expectations really high, and
it's like he was relying on his name too much.
That teaser image that they posted last spring was it was over the summer, whenever. That was maybe not a good idea.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think they generated hype, and then the product came along, and it just seems like, I think that most of the hype around it was essentially built on the fact that, well, Xiaomi announced the Mi Mix, and then you couldn't buy that in the US and really use it on a carrier. I mean, you could buy one in the great market, but most people don't do that. This was kind of the first chance for a lot of people in the US to get a go at a bezel-less phone. And I'm sure they sold a few, because I see people in our comments that clearly have bought the phone and have it and everything. So like, they did sell some phones, I am sure.
And Sprint just started selling it.
I was about to say, they could only get it on Sprint. Sprint will take anything. I could design a phone tomorrow. I could just show up at Sprint headquarters like on a napkin with a doodle and then like an arrow pointing to it that says phone, and they would say, "Okay, we're interested."
The Ryan phone. I'd buy it.
I don't know. Would they take Frank?
I think you know what? I think they probably would. If somebody offered them the opportunity, they'd be like, sure. If we'll sell 20 of them, then let's do that.
So, speaking of, we were talking a little bit, brought up the iPhone. Obviously, Apple announced the phone, and really, you can't ignore the iPhone, especially this year. I think is going to be particularly relevant year.
It's a lot of iPhones they announced.
A lot of iPhones. 3
whole
iPhones.
mess of iPhones.
Yep.
2 of which are super boring, and one of which I think is going to be super unpleasant to use.
Yeah. So I'm very curious. That said, so we've talked about our thoughts on the X on the site, but let's kind of go over things here. So you had the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, which really are the iPhone 7s and 7s Plus.
Yeah, for real.
Literally,
they're like, hey, look, it has a different processor, and the back is glass now because it has wireless charging. Done.
Yeah, pretty much it. So there are no major changes there. The screens are a little better, right? I think they have like a better contrast and stuff.
Yeah, they're the typical Apple thing.
Yeah, Apple will always tell you the screen's got better.
I'm sure they're the nicest LCDs out there.
They're super Retina.
Yeah, so you had the new processor, the A11 Bionic, which just makes me want to, like, that name just makes me upset in so many ways.
That's something Motorola would have come up with in
2012.
So look,
iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, super boring. They're new iPhones. Who cares? The X is what people care about because it is super weird.
Isn't it denoted as iPhone 10 though? Or
yes, it is iPhone 10.
Yeah.
So Apple forgot how to count. Like,
so did Microsoft.
Every consumer is going to call it the X. Nobody's going to call it the 10.
I'm sure Apple is going to relentlessly at every opportunity try to remind people. But yeah, so there's no iPhone 9. I guess. There's also no Windows 9. So in an alternate reality, I'm sure Windows 9 and the iPhone 9 are a thing.
Well, so the 10 name, they didn't say it, but it's just because it's 10th anniversary. That's why it's 10.
Who the hell cares?
Apple fans. And it sounds stupid, but yes, it matters to them a lot.
It
I
does.
think the real question is,
dude, we care
what
about the
comes
Android
after the
statues.
10?
They think we're silly for that. It's no different.
It's like, why do you keep calling your operating system after candy? That's dumb.
Yeah.
Actually, I heard they like that. It's just the statues that they think we're dumb for.
Really? The
Yeah.
statue? Like, really? A statue?
That,
Okay.
I've heard a lot of Apple fans say, who the hell cares? Why do you guys make such a big deal out of that? It's like,
I stopped
because it's
caring.
fun.
I stopped caring at Kit Kat. But
That was peak statue.
Once the statue starts sucking, then yeah.
It was definitely. So I think the iPhone X. So the biggest, I think, the most Apple reality distortion moment was when they were just like, so fingerprint scanners. Who gives a shit? Like nobody wants those.
Yeah.
We're gonna line with your face. Magic dots. So many magic dots.
Just look at. They kept saying, "Just give the phone your attention. Just give the phone your attention."
Look deep into your iPhone X.
And it's and then they
You're lovingly into your iPhone to unlock.
and they kept demoing it, and they kept insisting that it was easy. And then one of their demos failed in a spectacular fashion.
Well,
They had to go
and
back.
it
it was like the very
Craig
first one.
Federighi sent today. Some random guy sent Craig Federighi an email of talking about basically the fact that the Face ID stopped working on stage. And Craig Federighi sent him a response and talked about it. And apparently there were too many faces. That's just what Craig Federighi said. There were too many faces, and the phone locked itself out because there's too many faces to recognize.
So you can't unlock your phone at a party or something.
Well, I think
You can.
Craig
You just have to
Federighi-
go into the iPhone corner and unlock it.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but what he meant was too many people had held that phone and
Yeah.
it was tripping out because it thought maybe it had been stolen.
yes,
And so you have to enter the passcode on the screen. That's what they were getting at.
If people hold your phone, is it going to keep trying to unlock and think that something is wrong? Is it if somebody were to pick up your phone with the fingerprint sensor and repeatedly touch the fingerprint sensor, but all they have to do is pick up the phone. If the phone sees a face, it's like, oh, nope, something's wrong.
So I don't actually know. I watched the whole presentation, but I never really actually thought about the fact so as soon as you take the phone out of your pocket or pick it up, it's scanning already.
They didn't say really how they didn't talk about how wide the field of view was, but it seems like they had to sort of point it pretty directly at their face area, I guess.
And if you look at all the illustrations, what's really funny is they say it can be sitting on a table and it will see you. But the thing is, all of their illustrations then show the head pointing down at it. You have to face this thing pretty dead on for it to pick up.
Yeah, this is going to be not as good as having a fingerprint sensor. It's just not.
So I mean, everybody I've talked to, the consensus is, everybody I've talked to in person at least, I've seen some people on Twitter who think that Apple actually is all in on the Face ID and is done with fingerprint scanners. I don't think that's true.
I don't buy that for a second.
No, next year, or maybe the year after, I don't know. They'll figure out how to do a fingerprint sensor built into the screen, and they'll talk about how awesome that is.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be my favorite part is watching them go back and say, now hold on, it's really good this time, we promise.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen. But at the same time, I'm also open to the possibility that Apple is that stubborn. And now that they couldn't have it this year, and so now they never want it. And I think Samsung's going to go for it with this. I think everybody else is going to go for it with the industry.
Xiaomi definitely. Yeah,
I mean that's what everybody wants, I think.
Yeah.
That just makes a lot of sense from a design standpoint, because I mean, look what Samsung had to do with the fingerprint sensor on the Galaxy S8 and Note 8. It is in a terrible spot because they couldn't put it on the front anymore.
Let's be fair; they didn't have to put it there. They
did
could have put it in a lot of other better places.
They could have, but they didn't have time to re-engineer the way things were.
Well, I think that was probably more like they wanted the battery size and packaging stuff, and they were willing to say, "Screw it, we can be kind of crappy."
I think it was a cost-cutting measure.
I've been using the Galaxy S8 for the last couple of days, and man, that fingerprint sensor is
Oh no, I
garbage.
use the
It
Note
is
8 for like
shocking.
3 weeks, and that's just like it frustrated me every single.
I just can't even fathom. Like it even when you actually find it with your finger on the back, it's so not accurate. It shocks me, frankly.
Yeah. So the iPhone X also, as far as unique features over the 8 Plus, it does have a couple little things. So they put OIS on the telephoto camera for the X, which is not present on the 8 Plus and wasn't present on like 7 Plus, which is kind of cool, I guess. And then it also has significantly better battery life. So I think that that's definitely a selling point. I don't know why it has such better battery life. I don't really get that.
Well, it doesn't have a home button, and the home button uses so much power.
Yeah, like if only you had these bezels where you could place the battery, some extra battery in there, in those bezels.
So there's no home button. So Apple has this sort of annoying system of gestures now, which I think sound terrible. But there are some people on Twitter who are telling me that it totally sounds fine.
Yeah.
So instead of tapping a button to go home, you swipe up. And if you want to multitask, you swipe up and stop for a second. And then it goes in multitasking mode. And then
that sounds
that sounds worse than
That's
Meizu.
not all that different from what they already had, though. I mean, multitasking, they were already kind of doing that thing where you press on the side and drag over.
But they had a button. You could just tap the button to go home, and it's a double press to get to multitasking. Yeah. It's easier to press a button, and I mean it wasn't even a physical like clicky button anymore.
Yeah,
it's easier to do that than to swipe across the screen.
Yeah, I'm pretty concerned about that as well. I think that Apple's probably looking at Android's navigation system and going, shit.
Yeah, they're like, man, we should have done that before them, but now they won't admit that it was a good idea.
Yeah. And I mean, don't be wrong. There's nothing like visually elegant about Android's navigation, which is what Apple's all about. But like Apple had a button. Like it's like you had to take up a physical space on the phone that didn't do anything else. Well, had a fingerprint scanner, but that is, like that was not elegant either. So
and the other problem is that they wanted, you could clearly see in all the marketing material they were totally bragging about how every corner of the phone is like all content.
It's all
and
screen.
The corner, but not the top middle section.
No, don't talk about that.
And that is going to be such an annoying thing.
Yeah, and so, we were talking about this before, how the screen is 16:9, and so when you watch a video on the iPhone X, it will actually take a chunk of the content.
It is going to be so annoying.
Oh my God.
So my question, I know that they avoided it during the presentation. It was very clearly avoided, but I haven't seen anyone really talking about it either. What happens with regular apps when you go into landscape mode?
I don't know.
Maybe you just can't do that. Maybe there is no landscape mode.
That would be
Anybody
could very well be.
I would be curious to see. I'm sure there are lots of
weird
I'm
things.
looking through images on Google right now, and I don't see any of the iPhone X in landscape.
On the Verge's hands-on, they said, while Apple isn't hiding this notch like it has done with some hardware features before, it's not fully embracing its software either. The iPhone X renders web pages with white bars on the sides if you're using it in a landscape. So that's as far as web pages go. I don't know about normal apps, but that's what Safari does.
Okay, yeah, there's a picture of it. Yeah, that looks horrible.
Yeah,
it looks really so bad. The least they could have done is gone with a black screen. Why wouldn't they?
I'm going to come out strongly against this trend of having cutouts on the screen. I think it's a bad idea, and I don't want people to do it anymore.
Well, because didn't the Essential phone have like the proximity and light sensors underneath the glass, something like that? Didn't we get
I don't remember
something like that about somebody bragging about? Because there's only the camera.
Well, I mean, they do that in smartwatches already, so it makes sense that you can do it on a phone, which is basically how the fingerprint scanners on display.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen right now. I just want everyone to see this horrible user interface choice.
Oh God!
Yeah,
That is.
I was just about to do the same.
Oh,
Oh,
that's horrible.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
you know, I know people say this all the time, but I really don't think Steve Jobs would have gone for that.
No, that looks miserable.
Yeah, that does not look so hot.
It's the blatant inelegance.
Yeah,
Especially there was not any thought put into that.
Like, you could have just put black bars on the side, and then the notch would have gone away. So that I think that would have evened it out.
I will not say this is elegant. I will say, who the hell reads in landscape mode on their phone?
Okay,
nobody does this. It does look bad. Don't get me wrong. But like, how often is this going?
Some web pages don't render well.
A lot of people do a lot in landscape though, and it doesn't have to be just web pages. Like, there's iPhones are kind of all about the apps and
games,
lots of stuff.
Yeah,
games are going to be pretty bad on this too.
Cody, did you say that normal apps do this too, or is it just?
There's.
I'm trying to find a sample of it.
I don't think The Verge showed normal apps, but I don't see why normal apps would be any different. Like, they're going to have to letterbox them. Oh, what in the world?
Did you find something?
This is so weird.
It's the part of the show where we just
look further down on that Verge post.
I'll go back to it.
Show us or link us.
Yeah, hold on. I gotta share this. This is so ridiculous.
This is really good.
Oh my! I just looked at it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. Here, I'll share mine since I already had the thing open. All right. Share screen. There we go. Look at that.
Oh wow! Yeah.
That is
my
beautiful.
God.
That looks so bad.
That's very bad.
Oh, it went away because I hit play.
I'm actually kind of impressed with how
look at
terrible.
That. Look at it moving. Look at that.
Oh.
I mean, in a weird way, it's clever. It's
beautiful.
Just dumb.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's awful. Granted, I just don't think many people use their phones that way. It wouldn't bug me because I would not encounter that very often.
Oh, I use landscape all the time.
Really, the video cutout thing would probably bug me a little bit. But again, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that's very easy to get, fixate on, but at the same time, like, my usability concerns about this phone definitely reside mostly in Face ID. That sounds like a bad experience.
It's got the only OLED panel good enough to be in an iPhone.
Yeah, which is such a hilarious. I think that overall, though, so let's talk about wireless charging. Wireless charging and Apple embracing Qi, which I don't think anybody really saw coming.
Yeah,
that was unexpected.
I kind of felt like waiting for the iPhone to add wireless charging was waiting for Apple to put Blu-ray drives in Macs. Like, you were waiting for it for like 4 years, and then you just accepted that it would never happen, and then it happened.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably going to lead to a resurgence in wireless charging on Android devices.
I really hope
I think that's absolutely going to be the case, and I think Google is going to get a lot of crap with the new Pixels for not having wireless charging.
I don't really care about wireless charging very much.
Well, like I said, it's been probably close to a year since I even put a phone onto a wireless charger, and I have phones that work on wireless chargers. It's just I don't care anymore. It's not that good.
My one point about wireless charging, as much as I don't like it for certain reasons, it's slow. You can't really use your phone while it's wireless charging because it's weird and like it's sitting there and it gets really hot and
it tanks the longevity of the battery big time.
Oh, I'm sure it does. The one thing I will say is the fact that Apple's adopted it now means that you will see public wireless charging spaces, and that is very convenient.
I mean, is it though? I don't really want to
You don't have to have a cable with you. You forgot your charger. Like, you're just at a restaurant. Like, if the table has a wireless charging pad on it, like, you can toss your phone on there. It's convenient. It really is. And I can see it, in airports, and just general like public spaces and stuff. I think that it's going to become a thing.
Now, I agree with that. Right now, it's interesting because we're going through that. We kind of just went through the conversion from micro USB to USB-C. I agree with that, but it would have made a bigger difference if it happened about a year or two ago. Now we're already kind of passing that point where everyone's already switching to a new cable that's better and faster by a lot. so many people are still going to choose to charge by cable.
I think so, and that's fine.
And I agree. Convenience makes that big difference, but it's, again, it would have been so much more exciting and interesting if it happened a year or two ago.
I guess. I think it's mostly the speed thing. Yeah, it sucks, but she'll get faster. They will amp it up a little bit. They already have 15-watt wireless chargers, which is like, that's normal cable charging speed for an Android phone. Also, the other thing that Apple was kind of very coy about was the fact that the iPhones all now support rapid wired charging, but only if you use a Apple laptop adapter and buy a USB-C to Lightning cable. So that's quite a spendy proposition. I think the USB-C to Lightning cable is $25.
How fast does it charge? How many watts?
I don't know. I've not seen that. I would guess 15 watts.
So it still doesn't have a Type-C cable in the box.
It does not. So and it doesn't have a fast charger in the box. It's the same 1 amp 5-volt charger the iPhones have used for eons.
That's, I don't know. I mean, like with the iPhone 8, I guess it doesn't matter. But when you're paying $1,000 for a phone, you should really get a fast charger.
You know what? It's not like the iPhone 8 is cheap. It's still like a $700, $800 phone.
Yeah, I just meant like it's even more ridiculous that the X doesn't.
My theory here is the fact that Apple made this so low key and made you had to go through this like roundabout way to even use it, unless they're going to eventually license third-party quick chargers, which they may well, because I'm sure there's quite a market for them. I would guess that this is just a precursor to switching the iPhone to USB-C.
Yeah, they probably regret Lightning at this point.
Yeah, I think that this is basically the acknowledgement.
Or they wait a year and drop the port altogether and just go cheap.
I don't think that courage quite that bold. Yeah, that's a lot of courage. It's a whole lot of courage. I could see probably it would take a lot of courage from how is this going to affect our earnings standpoint.
The only way you can transfer files is via Bluetooth.
Yeah, that's pretty.
They'll have their own customized version of Wi-Fi Direct that only works with Apple devices for that.
Yeah, because they aren't pushing Lightning headphones anymore. Those never became a thing. Really, there's a few of them out there, but they never.
I've seen more AirPods than USB-C.
Yeah,
I see an obnoxious number of AirPods. Like people just walking around doing not music related things with AirPods in their head, and I'm just
So I think that the switch to USB-C for the iPhone is probably in the cards. I think eventually removing the port altogether is like Apple's, like Joni Ive dreams about that every night.
In his white room of solidarity.
Yeah, I'm sure he loves it, but I think that's gonna take years. And I know that Apple was, there are always rumors that Apple's working with this company Energus to do truly over-the-air wireless charging, but it sounds like that company doesn't seem to be able to deliver on their technology.
And I mean, any technology like that, I think, even if you posit some sort of semi-magical advancements, it's not going to be as efficient as plugging a cable into your phone.
It never will be, but I think eventually it's about Apple always does this though. They adopt the technology when it's kind of crappy, and then it gets better. They've done this in the past, so I think that she is very much a stopgap. I also think that it makes sense. I think it will help the standard. It will make charging phones in general better. And I probably think it's inevitable that we're all going to have glass back phones for the future.
No, I don't want that.
No.
Yeah. Didn't they figure out how to do wireless charging with a metal phone? I feel like that was a thing.
I don't know.
Somebody did.
Look, if I made that up, if that was just like a fond dream or something, I'm going to need somebody to invent that in real life.
It was like Huawei, or I'm pretty sure it was Chinese, like Lenovo, not Lenovo.
Weird. For some reason, I had HTC in my head, but yeah, it probably wasn't that.
I had Huawei.
That's why Google's buying them.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
So that I think we've we've touched. I don't really want to talk about the Apple Watch or the Apple TV because does anybody?
No.
There is nothing to say about them. They're basically barely upgraded. Well, the TV is 4K now with HDR. Woo,
Well,
that,
you know, hey,
no,
well,
that
hey
didn't
now.
totally happen on Android
Uh,
3
the
years
watch
ago.
the watch will cost you $10 a month now, so that is a big upgrade.
Oh, the
Yes.
carriers
Oh.
are just they're very
Oh
adamant.
yeah, I'm sure the
Yeah.
carriers are loving it.
I don't think I bet the adoption rate on the LTE connectivity is going to be super low. I bet they're not going to sell many of those. Because the non-LTE one's what, $329 versus $399 for the LTE.
What, you don't want a video call from the middle of a lake while you're kayaking? Just like that
Well,
one
no, that
clip
wasn't
you did on
part was
stage?
unrelated. The video part was unrelated to the watch itself.
Also, did you see what the talk time is for the Apple Watch LTE?
Oh, geez.
1 hour.
Oh my god.
They estimate 18 hours of regular usage battery life for the LTE model, which is garbage.
Yeah, that's
not acceptable. Period. There's just not. I mean, Samsung with the Gear S3, whatever, the LTE version, that thing gets over 2 days of battery
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, Samsung's Gear watches are really pretty good, actually.
They pretty much spank everybody. It's not even
they do.
close on the battery life side. Samsung does some kind of magic stuff with Tizen and those things. But
and I don't know what the talk time on it was, but the LG Watch Sport, for the testing that I did do with it, it definitely would have outlasted an hour on talk time. There, no question asked.
Yeah. So I think that the Apple Watch is just, I feel like everybody was super into the Apple Watch when it was being announced, and then they got to the iPhone X and like, just remember that I don't actually care about Apple Watch at all. You see a lot of them.
Yeah,
well, that said, no, yeah, I see a handful of Android Wear devices in any given month, probably, but I see an Apple Watch frequently.
I see
Apple Watches and Gear S2s and 3s a lot. Like Samsung's got a pretty good market here and where I live.
Yeah, I think Samsung's doing a hell of a better job than Google is on wearables, but that's
Google
kind of
doesn't care about Android Wear. It seems
it really doesn't. It does not care about Android Wear. I was at this Qualcomm event like 2 nights ago, and they had all of the Android Wear watches there, and like, don't you want to look at like the Louis Vuitton watch? And I'm like, I don't care. I wore Android Wear for like 2 years, and that was enough for my entire life, forever. I don't need any more Android Wear ever again.
So you have about the same interest in that Google does.
Yeah, exactly. I would be more likely to try an Apple Watch than I would to go back to an Android Wear watch. Not that I have any interest in an Apple Watch either. So
I haven't turned on my watch or Bane in probably months.
Yeah, and
less reason to do it now because it probably has a Wear 2.0 update waiting, and that's
it already has it. That's the one that you told me to set on fire.
Yeah.
I hope. See, I still like my my Huawei watch, but I really just use it to read notifications. I don't use Assistant or any of the apps.
I hate notifications on Wear 2.0. It is my least favorite thing about it.
It's not good for that, but I still use it.
There's another way that Samsung kills it. I love the way notifications are handled on the Gear S3.
They handle the notifications very well.
Yeah.
Which is really, for Google, is embarrassing.
Yes, it is, because that's, okay, so I'll just, quickly drop it on a show here. I'm going to buy an iPhone X and use it. And that is my number one fear switching to the iPhone is I hate how notifications are handled in iOS. I hate it so much. It's what makes me love Android. Android's notifications are super powerful and super actionable, and Google just keeps making them better. Whereas Apple's like, well, I guess now you can look at them from the lock screen more easily.
So no, I couldn't live without expandable notifications, man.
Oh,
aren't they still pop-ups?
The best. Yeah.
No, they're not pop-ups.
There's a notification shade in iOS technically.
Okay.
Do you still have to dismiss with that tiny button for each category? That's bad.
So now with 3D touch or Force touch, whatever,
That's right.
you can hold the button hard and they'll all go away. But
Still,
on my
that's so
iPad Air
bad.
2, which doesn't have Force touch, you can't. So you have to go through all of them.
Those tiny buttons
It's an actual nightmare.
It's so horrible to use.
It really is. And the notifications on the tablet just pile up because I don't use it more than once every week or two. And so the notifications just get stacked in there. And it's I just stopped dismissing them eventually. It's I'll reboot it at some point. It's like I don't want to go through all these. Yeah, that is one thing. When I switch to an iPhone for I'll use it for probably like a month, and the notification situation is definitely going to be my biggest fear.
And we should point out you're doing this to write about it, not just because you hate.
Yeah, I'm doing it to write about it because I'm going to switch. I will absolutely switch back to Android because I know I'm not going to like it that much. I just think it'll be fun to write about and kind of give the perspective because I have never used an iPhone for an extended period. I mean, I've used an iPhone, but like playing with one for like 2 minutes. I have an iPad, but it's not really the same to make that the one thing in your pocket every single day. So I'm curious to see how frustrated I get. I'm going to imagine very at times. I think there will be positive stuff, but yeah, we'll see.
So with the notifications, that will be the reason why you don't answer any emails or messages, right? Because you just completely miss them.
Yeah. So that'll be a thing. We'll see coverage about that on AP when the iPhone X comes out, which is ships on November 2nd or whatever, something like that.
So it'll be a AP Christmas special.
Yeah, so because the pre-order started on October 27th, I think, which is also very un-Apple, by the way. The fact that they announce a product that doesn't ship for like 2 months.
Yeah, that's Google's thing.
That's Google and Samsung's thing.
Apple's doing that more and more lately. They did it with the watch. They did it with HomePod. I think that's the right name.
HomePod. I was really surprised that they chose to announce that so far out. That was weird.
They had to.
Well, look at what Google did with the Home.
Yeah, they were so far behind in that market. They didn't have a choice. They had to at least say, no, guys, seriously, we're working on it. Don't go buy the competitor. We promise we'll have something out.
Yeah. Meanwhile, at Whole Foods. All right. I think that about does it for us this week. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Jordan. I was waiting.
I was about to say, if Jordan doesn't do that.
I got distracted.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to stop the broadcast in Memento.